Hi, my name is Cindy Henriksen, and I am a school psychologist with Keystone AEA. I am also a member of the mental health resource team, and today I'm going to present to you on positive psychology. Just ignore my weird head hanging out here. All right. So, my objectives for you in this video are to learn what positive psychology is, because not a lot of people do know. It's kind of an up-and-coming field in psychology. I want you to understand how to take a strengths-based versus deficits-based approach to intervention and working with students. I also want you to learn simple strategies that you can implement in schools based on the tenets of positive psychology. And then also I want to expose you to some evidence-based programs that are actually based on positive psychology and can be utilized in your classrooms with students. So again, like I mentioned, not a lot of people are aware of positive psychology or what it is. And actually, before World War II, psychology was a very broad field that focused quite extensively on not only what is wrong with people, but also what is right and makes life worth living and the people living it happy, which is vastly different from what we think of as psychology today, which is classically a medical model or a disease model of different mental health disorders versus focusing on positive things. What happened was, after World War II, many soldiers were coming back from the war with significant mental health challenges. And the number of psychiatrists that were available to help these soldiers was not large enough to deal with the influx of these soldiers with different disorders. And the founding of the Veterans Administration led psychologists to realize that they could make a very good living treating people, specifically soldiers who had these mental illnesses. In addition, psychologists in academia found out that they could actually get grants to support their research if their focus was on pathology or actual mental illness or disease. So therefore, psychology quickly turned to a disease model and began to see themselves more as a subfield of health professionals and really started to forget about the other focuses that psychology originally had, which was finding out what makes life worth living and nurturing talent. During World War II, a man named Csikszentmihalyi saw how some people, once social supports were removed, crumbled into empty shells. So when there were stressors in their life and they didn't have anyone to help them, they fell apart. Whereas he noticed that other people with the exact same kinds of circumstances, horrible situations, not a lot of support, actually were able to thrive and maintain hope despite the horrible setbacks and circumstances. So he really began to wonder, well, why is this? Why are some people able to handle these situations, but other people are not? And he began to research and look into this. He was convinced that psychology is not just the study of pathology and weakness and damage, but it's also the study of strength and virtue. Treatment is not just fixing what is broken, it is nurturing what is best. So what he learned when he began looking into things is that when we focus on identifying what the disease is, putting that label on it, identifying the symptoms, it does not help with prevention. We've identified that people have illnesses, but by that point, they're full-blown in the middle of it. Instead, he realized that to prevent, we need to focus on skills that are going to strengthen our mental health. He really focused on things like courage, future-mindedness, optimism, interpersonal skills, work ethic, hope, honesty, all these different things that I have listed here. All these different skills that can actually be taught to people, that people can learn to help prevention of mental illness versus waiting until someone is in full-blown crises. So think of mental health like a water pitcher. Basically, what this means is that each of us is born with a pitcher waiting to be filled. Traditional psychology focuses mostly on removing the symptoms of mental illness or the impure water. So they pull water from the pitcher. However, when we do that, we leave empty space. If we don't fill that in with something good, then the impure water or the mental illness might come right back in to fill in those empty spaces. Positive psychology, however, believes that if we keep adding the pure water or strengths like optimism, kindness, empathy, self-compassion, eventually the impure water will be less and less and eventually barely there at all because all of those good things are pushing out the bad things. So this is a strengths perspective versus the deficit or disease model. And there is now research to back this up based on brain studies. Several researchers have found that positive and negative emotions and thoughts are largely independent of each other. So this means that just by reducing stress and negativity, one does not increase the positive emotions or thoughts. You actually have to work on that separately because they are separate functions in the brain. Now that I've given you an overview of what positive psychology is, I wanted to keep that brief. I don't need to bore you with all of that. I wanted to give you some practical strategies that can be used with students to really help give them some of these strengths, give them these skills that are going to help push that impure water out. One of the important things that I came across in some of my research is to think about praise and how you use it. The research tells us that when we praise students and their actions or their attributes, they begin to lose focus on what's really important, which is the learning process. And they start to focus on only the praise and getting more of it. They start to develop a fixed mindset and worry about being wrong and not smart and not doing a good job instead of worrying about how does my learning look? Am I improving on how I'm solving problems or coming to conclusions? They focus more on that praise. In addition, students over the age of 7 start to become suspicious of praise. They're also less likely to accept it or find it reinforcing in any way. So it's really important to avoid saying things like, good job, or you're so smart, because they're going to either start to crave those kinds of things and worry about making any kind of mistake at all, which, as we know, when we're teaching, it's actually important to make some mistakes because you learn a lot from them. Or they become suspicious of your praise and they think, you don't really care, that's not true, you're just saying that because you want me to work. If anybody who's listening to this teaches middle schoolers or high schoolers, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that attitude of, I don't believe what you're saying. So make sure that you praise the strategy that they used. Or I like how you're working on solving that. You found a really good way to do it. Or praise the specific skill. You really seem to understand decimals. Or, oh my gosh, look at you doing this addition. This is great. Or praise their hard work. Like, I can really see that you're trying. Look at all that practicing you're doing. You've really improved in your practicing from last week. Those kinds of things. Another interesting thing in positive psychology is actually teaching students that stress can be a good thing. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but I'm going to tell you what I mean. We're constantly bombarded with the idea that stress is bad. We don't want to have stress. It leads to health problems, weight gain. Anybody heard of those annoying infomercials about cortisol and weight gain and, oh, buy this pill because you're so stressed out, you're getting fat. And also it can lead to learning problems. We emphasize to children that they need to use coping skills to get rid of their stress. They should be completely relaxed and happy. they won't be able to learn when they're stressed out if they have any kind of stress. And when we tell children that stress is a bad thing and to get rid of it, which really is impossible, as we know, you just can't get rid of stress completely. This can actually lead them to increase their stress because they're stressed about being stressed, which is not very helpful. And research does tell us that not all stress is bad, and it can actually be beneficial in some cases. Anyone here a procrastinator? I know that I definitely am. That last minute stress of the situation tends to give me the focus and the motivation that I need to be able to get things finished when I know I have a limited amount of time to get them finished. So if I have a day to finish something versus a week, I actually tend to be much more productive in that day and turn out better material in that day than I would if I was working on it piecemeal throughout the entire week. When we teach children that they need to embrace emotions like stress versus run away from them, we're giving them the tools that will help them adapt to challenges. And we are not stressing them out about stress because, again, sometimes stress is a good thing. Another important thing is teaching empathy. This is something that we just don't think about doing. We don't think about teaching students how to listen to other students and put themselves in their shoes that often. Empathy is an important skill to have that can actually increase the satisfaction of social interactions because students are listening to each other, caring about each other, as well as lead to greater cooperation between learners. So it's the key in learning empathy is about perspective taking and really valuing each other's feelings and opinions. If we don't teach students how to do this, it's hard for them to learn just by watching someone. Role plays and cooperative learning groups are really good tools for helping students learn empathy. Doing some out loud modeling is really good. Teaching them, oh, I heard that this happened, so this is what I thought. Gosh, I remember when a similar situation happened to me, and I remember how much that hurt, and I didn't like it. And so I made sure to listen and be there with that person when I heard them talking about X, Y, and Z. There's also a free, I love free, strategy that is available called Jigsaw that can be utilized in the classroom where students are organized into groups, and each member of the group ends up being a master of a certain piece of an assignment. And so students start to learn how they have to listen to each other and value each other's opinions and realize that everybody has valuable input because each person is a master of that particular piece. Or there's also the Heroes Project, which is also free. That has various activities that can be utilized with students to help them teach empathy. And they also have an 8-week intervention program that can be utilized to really help instill those skills. And now I want to show you just a little video by Renee Brown that talks a little bit about empathy because her perspective is very good because it even helps me think about how do I respond to people when they're telling me something that is sad or something bad that happened to them. And I even catch myself thinking, oh, I maybe need to respond in a way different than I want to or need to because I'm uncomfortable. But I need to remember that empathy is very important.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So I really like what she said in there, that rarely does a response make something better. It's the connection. And empathy is hard for people. So imagine how hard it is for kids. Like she mentioned in the video, we're putting ourselves in a very vulnerable position because we are connecting with the sadness, the hurt, or the anger that somebody else is feeling. We have to recognize that in ourselves in order to connect to that other person and say, wow, yeah, I get it. That's awful, and I'm here for you. Instead of doing those, well, at least. I catch myself all the time about to spit out oh, at least, and I have to pull myself back, because that's not empathy. That's actually belittling how a person feels. You're belittling their emotion at that moment. And it comes from a good place. We're trying to make people feel better by saying those at least statements. But it doesn't necessarily make them feel better. It tends to make us feel better more than it makes them feel better. So teaching empathy is hugely important and one of the very important skills that I believe need to be taught to students. Another really important skill is practicing gratitude and teaching them gratitude. So research that has been done by several people have shown that students who display and practice gratitude, particularly if they focus on things at school that they're grateful for, they tend to have stronger school satisfaction, higher levels of alertness, more enthusiasm, increased determination, more attentiveness, and more energy than those students who did not practice gratitude. I don't know about you, but that's a student that I would like to have in my classroom. So, and it's important to also emphasize, especially for students who might have a history of trauma, who might be homeless, kiddos who really might not have a ton of things to be grateful for, teaching them that it's okay to be unhappy about things in your life and wish things were different, because those are feelings and it's okay to have these feelings. However, it's important to focus on what is good. What little thing in life right now is going well that you are grateful for? Is there that one person in your life that you're grateful for? Was it a beautiful day on your walk to school today? Whatever it might be, even if it's tiny little things, teaching them about that and showing them to recognize those things, helping them recognize those things is really important because it gets them out of that negative mindset. It helps them realize there are some things that can go right and are going right. So there are some really simple ways to teach gratitude, and they can be done actually with children who are as little as 3 to 4 years old. So simple interventions of these have actually shown really strong results even 3 weeks after the intervention ended. And they could actually last longer. It's just that's when they stopped doing follow-up on how well students were doing. So some things are gratitude journals. If you have students who can write fairly well, they can write down what they're grateful for in the journal and share in class once per week. Or you could have students write 5 simple things that they're grateful for and share them with the class. Or have students shout out things in the class and write them on the board for them if they are not writing yet. So that way they can see all sorts of things that other kiddos are grateful for, and maybe if someone else is having a hard time thinking of something, they might notice, oh, Sally was really grateful for the cookies that we had at lunch today. I was pretty thankful for that too. Really simple things, but it helps those students get out of that negative mindset. So mindfulness strategies. This is kind of an up and coming thing too. There are a lot of different trainings out there, like yoga for teachers, all sorts of different things. The book Teach, Breathe, Learn, which is available in the Keystone Library, talks about mindfulness. It's kind of a hot topic right now. Mindfulness, it is an important positive psychology intervention because it is based on helping students be present in the moment, center themselves, and also deal with their emotions. Often students and staff, after using mindfulness strategies, increase their appreciation, motivation, and focus to do well and be kind to others and themselves. So research has also found that it can increase creativity, enhance resilience, and create positive thinkers. There is also information that shows that it reduces stress in the body, which, again, I mentioned stress can be a good thing, but if we have too much of it, that is a bad thing. It can reduce blood pressure, lower your heart rate. So there are a lot of actual health benefits to mindfulness, as well as the other things like having a more productive, happy student in school. And there are a ton of resources for this. It's very simple to do. Go Noodle is a free resource that I love. I'll be showing you a little clip here in a minute. There's also the Stop, Breathe, and Think app that is available for the computer or on a mobile device. It's actually focused on juveniles or high-risk youth. It is free, but there are in-app purchases available, of course. As I mentioned, the book Teach, Breathe, and Learn. And so that is also available through the Keystone Library, as I mentioned. But there's an example here of just mindfulness can be as simple as you have students close their eyes at the beginning of class or stare at a spot, and you have them focus on how their body is feeling, tense muscles, relaxed muscles, have them hold something in their hand and have them focus on what it looks like, what it feels like, and walk them through that. Use guided imagery scripts or a fragrant piece of food, such as a Hershey Kiss. I once had someone walk me through mindfulness using a Hershey Kiss, and it was probably the best Hershey Kiss I had in my life because I was so focused on all the initial qualities of it before I even ever put the Hershey Kiss in my mouth. And make sure that you tell them when they are doing these mindfulness activities that they take note of any judgments or thoughts that pop into their head, but just kind of let them go. Oh, I'm having a thought right now. I need to let that go. Because again, mindfulness is all about being present and in the moment. This video is from Go Noodle. Like I said, one of my favorite free apps, which again, there are some things that you can purchase in there, but the majority of it is free, and this can be on your computer or a mobile device. And there are a variety of different mindfulness activities, some to help kids calm, some to help kids amp up some of their exercise if they need it or get their focus. This one is the strengthen your focus one.
Staying focused on what you are doing can be so challenging. But when you harness the power of your attention, it can make you stronger and more capable to take on your day. Stand steady in mountain, with your feet about hip width apart, your shoulders relaxed, and your palms facing forward and your body tall. Shift your weight onto your left foot and slowly lift your right leg off the ground. Bring the sole of your foot onto the inside of your leg, either below or above your knee. Lift your arms. As you work to get steady, let your gaze rest on this dot on the screen. Keep your eyes focused on this spot, and it will help your mind and your body get steady and focused as well. If you find your body wobbling or your attention wandering, just lower your foot down, regain your focus, and then lift back up. Inhale, exhale. Bring your knee back to front, lower your arms and your foot down to the ground. Now, lift your left foot and bring it to the inside of your right leg. When you're ready, lift your arms overhead. Inhale, exhale. Let's try a little experiment. As the dot moves around, keep watching it and notice what happens in your body. Is it harder to stay balanced? If you fall out of this pose, just pause and then pick your foot back up. Lower your foot down and stand in mountain. Come back to tree with your right foot lifted onto your left leg. Lift your arms overhead and stay focused on that green dot as you find your balance. If the blue dot distracts you and you lose your balance, just place your foot down, focus on the green dot, and lift it back up. Inhale, exhale. Each time you lose focus, notice that you've lost focus, and then bring your attention back to the green dot. You're exercising your focus muscles. Bring your foot to the ground. Pause in mountain pose. Then lift your left foot and bring it to your right leg. Reach your arms up and feel your foot root into the ground. Get steady and watch the dot glow on the screen. Inhale, exhale. Come back to stand and bring one hand onto your heart and one onto your belly. Close your eyes or keep them focused on the screen. What are the things that distract you in your life? Throughout the day, as you notice those things that try to pull your attention, remember, your focus muscle is strong.
Click here for loads.
So I really like that one because it does, over time, help students increase their focus. So maybe after coming in from recess or after lunch, this is something that you would play to help kids get back on track so they're ready to learn. You'll be surprised when you first start showing these videos and having them do these different kinds of things that there's some giggles and some laughs because kids lose their balance. They aren't used to doing these kinds of weird things. That's okay. And say to them, it's okay. This is going to seem weird at first. Just have that thought, let it go, and do your best. Another important thing, especially when we talk about positive psychology and discipline, is considering restorative justice type options when disciplining students. Our schools tend to be very punitive places. We overuse things like detention, suspensions, in school or out of school, or writing sentences about what they will not do again. This can lead to resentment, breaking relationships, and doesn't necessarily teach the students anything, particularly if they're not going to a home situation that's going to reinforce adaptive skills or have those conversations about what went wrong, what can we do next time, let's practice. Let's face it, there aren't a ton of students that are going home to situations like that. Parents may not be present. Parents may also just be as punitive. And so then that increases resentment. Students are out of school, so not only are they not learning what they need to learn, but then they're also not learning, how can I do better next time? So instead, process through the incident with the student and have them do something to build relationships back up again. Something like creating or doing something for others that they may have hurt in the incident or during the situation. And it would help them give back and get outside of themselves and show them what I did really hurt somebody or caused a problem or unnecessary job for somebody else. And this is the consequence of that. And I need to help them repair it versus, oh, I just got sent home for the day, or I have to sit in the principal's office for the day. So, for example, if a student punches a hole in the wall, maybe have them follow the custodian around and show them what it takes to fix that. Have them hand things to the custodian so they realize what they have to do and the time the custodian has to spend repairing that wall. Or maybe they create a positive bulletin board if they disrupted class. So something that's colorful and fun and enhances the classroom experience because they had actually disrupted that classroom experience. So there are several books that are available through the Keystone Media Library that can help with implementing a restorative approach. So check out the media library. There are several ones there. Another important thing, obviously, as I mentioned, this is a strengths-based approach, positive psychology, helps students identify their strengths and allow them to use them. Unfortunately, we live in an era of testing. Rote recall of facts tends to be the norm, and creativity is really often an afterthought. They'll get to do something creative in art class, right? Or if a particular student tends to be a discipline problem, always has a bad attitude and just won't do anything they're told, how hard can it be to find a strength for them? It can be very hard. It's important, though, to find what a student is good at and allow them to harness that to show them and show you what they know and what they can do. It allows them to feel success. It allows them to feel competent, and it makes them more likely to want to engage and do things in the future that maybe they don't want to do because you have allowed them to do things that they did want to do. There's a free strengths assessment available for adults and children ages 10 plus, based on a man named Seligman, who is also very front and center in the positive psychology movement. That is available at viacharacter.org/www/character-strengths-survey. So that is a survey that can be done, but students do have to be a little bit older and able to read questions to be able to do that. Or in the book Positive Psychology in a Nutshell, which is available in the Keystone Library, pages 107 to 109, there's a table of strengths and virtues that students can rate themselves on. And that can help you and that student identify what they might be good at and help utilize that in the classroom. And I put some suggestions on here for things that you can try in the classroom to allow students to show those different kinds of strengths. Teach self-compassion. So that's another important one. So negativity just tends to be the norm in life today. So how often have you left the house thinking, oh, what a bad hair day. Oh, I can't believe it's raining. Oh, I have so much work to do. Blah, blah, blah. These negative thoughts bombard us constantly. It's really hard to bring that positive to the forefront. Too often we dismiss the good things that we do, that we feel, that we see, and we tend to focus on only the unpleasant things or the things that are going wrong. Our students, particularly adolescents, struggle with this. We need to help them learn to embrace the good things and allow them to feel them. We really need to teach them that it's okay to have flaws and failures. Everybody has them. It's what makes us human. It connects us to other people. And kindness is not just something we do for others, but we do for ourselves. So, really simple intervention for this: have them write themselves a note with all the wonderful qualities that they have. Have them write a poster or make a poster where they cut little words out of magazines and they put them on, and things that they can remind themselves of. Have them post it somewhere so they can remember, I have all these good qualities too. Teach optimism. So that's something you don't often hear about, teaching optimism. Most people tend to think, well, I'm either an optimistic person or a pessimistic person. I'm either a glass half full or glass half empty. But you can actually train yourself to be more optimistic. Research has shown a multitude of benefits for thinking optimistically, even though our society does seem to be focused on those negatives. So optimists are better able to deal with setbacks and difficulties when they arise, for sure. One of the most effective ways to learn optimism is through regular practice of what is called the disputing strategy. So think about it like this. When we're falsely accused of something, we often dispute it. But we don't do the same when we have negative thoughts about ourselves or about our day. So it's teaching students to really look at their thoughts and look for alternatives or challenge the negative. So ask them, well, what is the evidence of that? Is there any other way to think about this? Thinking about it like this, does it make me feel good? And if not, maybe I need to change how I'm thinking about that. What would be a more helpful way to think? So when we're optimistic, we tend to have more motivation, we tend to persist when things get difficult, and those are really important qualities to have in school when faced with tough academic challenges. Another important thing is to increase novel movement in the classroom. So there is a lot of brain research that tells us that physical activity is really important to students in helping their brain and helping engage them in learning. And actually, there's a lot of research that says new activities or different activities, not the same activities, increase a lot of positive feelings and overall happiness with life. So again, Go Noodle is a great resource. They have a lot of dance videos, not just mindfulness, but they have some dance videos. There's also the app FizzU, which is also free, that has different movements that can be done in the classroom. Or you can think about maybe doing some station teaching where students have to move around the classroom, or create different activities in the classroom where they have to move around to get different things, but make sure to change it up. So it's not, oh, when I do this, I always go here. When I do this, I always go here. So making sure that things change. And I know it is important to keep a routine and keep things predictable for some of our students. So it's important to keep that in mind too, that you might have to prep some students and walk them through how things are going to look. Another important thing is to activate hope and build self-efficacy by teaching goal writing. So goal setting has shown to help students take ownership for their learning, build a sense of self-accomplishment, help them learn from failure, and learn to fear it less, which is very important, motivate them to accomplish tasks, and give them hope for the future. So again, these are very important things to engage students in thinking about, what is it that I want to do? How do I get there? And it helps them learn to persist when things get difficult. So help them explore what they want to accomplish and write clear, measurable goals to motivate them to the future. And think about, too, making sure they're focusing on just little goals, little things that they can meet, and then what they can do once they've met that goal and continue on. Help students build a feeling of control over the good things in their life. So researchers have found that if students do this every night for 1 week or once per week for 6 weeks, people had an increase in happiness and a decrease in depressive symptoms for at least 6 months. And the effects could potentially last even longer, but the researchers just didn't follow up past that 6-month mark. So the benefit here is that this is pretty easy to do. Every night before bed, teach students to write down 3 things that went well that day and have them reflect on their role in making that a feel-good activity or occurrence. Or it could even be that they do it once a week for 6 weeks. But it's really important here that they write them down and that they reflect. And it can be really hard if they write down something like, oh, the sky was blue and the sun was shining today. How did I have an impact on why the sun was shining and the sky was blue? Well, one example could be that they took the time to notice it and they appreciated the fact that it was a beautiful day. And that was their role and why that was a feel-good activity. So it's important that they, number 1, write it down, and number 2, reflect on that and recognize their role. So it helps them begin to feel a sense of control over even things such as, it's just a beautiful day. I actually can have some control over that because I recognize that it was a beautiful day and I chose to appreciate that. So the benefit here, again, as I said, it's pretty easy to do. And additional research has actually found that it should be a brief intervention, or the effects of it actually decline. So you don't want to make this a chore for students. That's why it could be nice to just do once a night for a week or just once a week for 6 weeks. And the final practical strategy that I want to talk about is putting everything together and remembering to use grace in your teaching. We're all human, and every once in a while, we're in need of a little grace for things that we've done or for things that have happened. So grace for ourselves and grace for others. So it's a trait that really incorporates a lot of positive psychology concepts. You're looking for strengths, you're connecting with someone, you're having empathy, showing kindness, and being mindful. So that's the idea of grace. And this is a little chart here that just kind of shows some of these things that grace really encompasses. So instead of blaming, we kind of take it from the other's perspective again. Now, some programs I want to touch on briefly that use tenets of positive psychology. Most of them are available through Keystone, which is very nice. This one in particular, Promoting Student Happiness, is a really good program. It's 10 weeks for students grades 3 through 12, and it's about 30 to 45 minutes per session. So it is very strengths-based. It focuses a lot on those different concepts that I talked about today, and really focuses on having students do acts of kindness, get out of their own shell and out of their own minds and do good things, and teaches them those optimistic thinking kinds of things, and having them look to the future. The one downside is that it does require a lot of reading before you can implement it. You can't just pick it up and go. It's not scripted, but it does allow you for a lot of flexibility because you can kind of decide what's going to work for my students, and this is what I'm going to focus on. Go Strengths, this one is not available through Keystone, but it is a web-based program, and it's available for students ages 8 to 18. They cover things like goal setting, problem solving, resilience, optimistic thinking, and so on. It's 10 online modules with videos and quizzes and in-class lesson plans that complement it. So not only can students work independently, but then you can choose what you want to touch on in the classroom to help strengthen those things. And there is a parent component if they're willing to pay the fee and carry it into the home. And if you have any students who are doing counseling outside of school and you're aware of this, this is something you can share with the therapist, and there is a professional therapy component as well if the therapist would choose to do that. Practicing Happiness Workbook. This is available through the Keystone Media Library. So it addresses the psychological traps of rumination, avoidance, emotion-driven behavior, and self-criticism. So it was designed based on research conducted by Seligman and on subjective well-being. It primarily addresses those traps that we fall into that are not helpful to us and tend to cause emotional distress. It is designed to be a self-help book, so it could be easily adapted to in-class discussions as well as outside of class practice. The reading level is a bit high though because it's designed for young adults to adult level. So if you're going to work with a younger population, it may need to be broken down and the language changed significantly. But it is supposed to help increase acting with awareness, acceptance of negative feelings with a willingness to let them go, and self-compassion. So it's really supposed to help decrease the negative in students' lives. So Nice Thinking. This is a 5-week program that systematically teaches students to think gratefully and practice their gratitude. So if you're kind of stuck on how to teach gratitude, this is something that can be done. It's actually available from an article that I found. So if you have Gale or EBSCOhost, or even just Google this article, you might be able to find it. It's called Nice Thinking, an educational intervention that teaches children to think gratefully. So once you get this article, it's right in there. It outlines exactly what you need to do. It's implemented 1 time per week for 30 minutes. It includes a gratitude journal that the students are supposed to complete outside of class, and then they come back and discuss. And then there are also discussions about the various components of gratitude, role plays that are included, and a few videos. So it's super easy to implement without a lot of background reading required at all. But you do need to find videos to help supplement the lessons. So they talk about a gratitude dance in there, and also showing a video about what is the meaning of gratitude. And I have a couple videos I'll show you that could potentially be used that I just found online. The really nice thing about this is that researchers wanted to find out if teaching gratitude would help increase grateful thinking and the actual experience of gratitude and then positive affect in their lives. And they found statistically significant results for all of these areas for up to 20 weeks after the intervention period. So 5 weeks of intervention, 1 time a week, 20-week results. And again, they kind of stopped doing follow-up, so the results could have lasted even longer. So again, if you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, this is a really good way to go about it. So this is one of those clips that I was talking about that you could show potentially when using this to talk about what is gratitude.
What is gratitude? Gratitude is the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness. Synonyms for gratitude: thankful, grace, grateful, acknowledgement, appreciation. Did you know there are benefits to being grateful? You'll sleep better at night. You'll have friendships. You'll be happier. You can think better. What do kids say about gratitude?
And then this is a gratitude dance that is involved in the nice thinking intervention, where you get kids to do this little dance after they've shared some of the things that they are grateful for.
So many people in the world today are focused on what's missing in their life. When you focus on what's missing, you miss the many amazing things that are already there.
We have created the following gratitude dance to express our gratitude for the things that we already have in our lives. So when you wake up in the morning, number one, you're going to write a list of everything in your life that you are truly grateful for right now.
Number 2, turn on this video.
And number 3, do the gratitude dance.
Oh yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Just a silly little video that it can't help but make you smile when you hear and see it. Maybe don't have your kids do the dance and treat it like those guys did, but just something kind of fun and entertaining that can be done to help them really feel grateful about the things that they are doing. Here's one of my resource slides that you can take a look at for the different things that I utilized for the presentation if you want to follow up on any of them. Otherwise, please check out our Keystone Mental Health website for more information. More videos will be coming in the future, particularly about ACEs and trauma, and trainings that we have, and additional books that we will be highlighting throughout the year. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this was able to help you in your upcoming school year.